Boldwood presents New Beginnings at Seaside Blooms, written by Jessica Redland and read by Lucy Brownhill. The moral right of the author has been asserted. This performance is owned by Boldwood. New Beginnings at Seaside Blooms. Welcome to Whitsborough Bay Book 2 by Jessica Redland. 1 year ago. Chapter 1. Come on, Jason, ring. I frowned at my iPhone as I paced up and down in the lounge, my stiletto heels echoing on the wooden floorboards. Oh, text! I don't care which, just make contact, please. My heart leapt as the phone beeped, but the text was from one of my best friends instead. From Elise. Happy birthday, Sarah. Last year in your 20s, so make the most of it. Wish you weren't so far away so I could give you a birthday hug, so sending one by text instead. I've hopefully timed your present to arrive today. Hope Jason's got you a fab gift. Proposal, maybe? Have a great evening. Kiss, 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 kiss. I stretched out my arm to admire the sparkly silver bracelet she'd sent. To Elise. Just got home and your parcel was waiting. Way too generous as usual, but absolutely gorgeous. Thank you so much. Not sure where he's taking me, but hopefully it's somewhere nice this time. I'm all dressed up with nowhere to go. Would be lying if I said a proposal hadn't crossed my mind. Eek! You'll be first to know if he does. Kiss, kiss, kiss. My hands shook slightly, and I felt a flutter in my stomach as I typed in the words. Could tonight really be the night? Maybe. The timing felt about right, and he'd been talking about making plans for the future. We'd been together for 2 years and 2 months, and had lived together for most of that time. Aside from occasional bouts of thoughtlessness on his part, and a tendency to drag me to the gym or on a 20-mile hike, way more often than a person should have to endure in a lifetime, we were very happy together, and I assumed that a proposal wouldn't be too far away. Another text arrived, but it still wasn't Jason. From Claire. Sorry for not texting earlier. Dim Daz borrowed my phone, then drove to Essex with it. Bloody muppet. Anyway, better late than never. Happy birthday, you old fart. Can't believe you want to spend the evening with your aged flatmate rather than me. Hope it's not McDonald's this time. Maybe he'll really treat you and do Pizza Hut. Keep Saturday night free if you want your card and gift, or I'm keeping them. Kiss, kiss. She'd added several laughing emojis to the end of the text. Your Auntie Claire is being very rude as usual. I said to one of our kittens, Cat. He'd appeared to demand a fuss. Flatmate indeed. But I couldn't help smiling. Only Claire could get away with a comment like that. To Claire. Thanks. Was beginning to think you'd forgotten me. I promised to keep Saturday free for you. Dread to know what sort of abuse I'd get if I don't. Not sure where my boyfriend is taking me. Still waiting to hear. McDonald's was a misunderstanding and you know it. Laters, kiss kiss. From Claire. Misunderstanding my arse. My final guess of the evening, the Griffin. I shook my head. So our 2-year anniversary hadn't gone quite to plan. But it was my fault, really. I should have known that saying, I'd love to go out for a meal to celebrate. How about the Campo? I could meet you in the Griffin after work. Was far too vague for Jason. I ended up nursing a glass of Pinot Grigio for 90 minutes before finally accepting he wasn't coming. Trudging home, I found him in his gym kit playing on his Xbox. You been working late? He asked. Should have texted me. I got you a McDonald's on the way home, but it'll be cold now, and there's nothing else to eat. He returned to his game and I went to bed hungry. I kept hoping he'd realise his mistake, but he never did, and, by then, it felt too late to say anything. I checked my phone again now. Nothing. It couldn't happen twice, could it? No. It had been his idea this time. Some of my friends from work had suggested a birthday meal, but Jason had insisted on taking me out himself. I gently reminded him a couple of days ago, and he'd assured me it was in hand, and I wasn't to quiz him any further, or I'd spoil the surprise. He said he'd contact me last minute with a location to meet him, so I could enjoy the excitement of speculating about where we were going. This was certainly last minute, and excitement wasn't quite the feeling I'd describe. It was now after 6:30. Oh, sod it, I couldn't do this anymore. Jason, this is killing me. Where are you taking me? I'm all ready and awaiting my instructions. Please tell me you haven't forgotten. Kiss, kiss. I hoped that reading my birthday cards again would distract me. It didn't. A little voice in my head kept telling me he had forgotten, and Claire's joke about McDonald's or my local might not be far from the truth. Perhaps he was frantically phoning round restaurants right now, and that's why he hadn't been in touch. Another text arrived, and finally it was from him. Please don't say McDonald's. From Jason. South Kensington Tube Station, 19:15 hours. Table booked for 19:30 hours. Kiss, kiss. Butterflies stirred in my stomach. Oh my God. South Kensington? Could it be? I hastily shoved my phone in my bag, pulled on my coat and left the flat, legs shaking as I strode towards the tube station. It was just a coincidence. There were hundreds of restaurants in South Kensington, and we could be going to any of them. With Jason's track record, it could be McDonald's. But what if? He'd taken me to Luigi's to celebrate me moving down to London shortly after we started seeing each other. During dessert, the man on the table next to us proposed to his girlfriend. It was such a moving and romantic moment, and on the way home, Jason said that he could imagine proposing there too. But that didn't mean he'd booked a table there tonight to propose to me, did it? When I reached South Kensington Tube Station, it took all my willpower to stand still on the escalator, when all I wanted to do was shove past the travellers, run up the steps, and skip across the concourse screaming, "Yes, Jason, I will marry you!" I spotted him by one of the exits. My breath caught as I saw what he was wearing. Classically tall, dark and handsome, he looked particularly hot in the three-piece suit he'd bought for his brother's wedding last summer. After his firefighter uniform, it was my favourite outfit on him. Although, to be perfectly honest, with a toned body like his, I preferred no clothes at all. Happy birthday. He bent down and gave me a soft kiss. I breathed in his musky scent, and those butterflies went crazy. You look good. Thank you. I whipped open my coat like a flasher, revealing the LBD I'd agonised over wearing for fear I'd be overdressed. He wolf whistled, and I flushed from head to toe. I approve, although you may be a little overdressed for what I have planned later tonight. I flushed again, and Jason laughed as he took my hand in his. Shall we? Where are we going? I tried to sound casual but failed abysmally. Please say Luigi's, please. He winked at me, grinning widely. It's a surprise. Oh my God. It could only have been 3 minutes, but I swear that walk felt like an hour. My sweaty hand kept slipping from his. I stumbled several times, and I even hiccuped, causing Jason to ask if I'd been on the wine before leaving the flat. The Italian flag and green deep canopy of Luigi's loomed ahead of us. My breathing quickened, and I mentally prepared myself. Must not look gutted if we walk past. Must look happy wherever he takes me. But we didn't walk past. We stopped. We went in. He gave his name, and we were led to a table towards the back, where a bucket of champagne on ice was waiting for us. Champagne. Proper champagne. Jason always said that supermarket-owned label Carver was overpriced, which could only mean, oh my God. I put my glass of champagne down as Jason pushed the candle aside and reached for my hand across the table a few minutes later. You really do look gorgeous tonight, he said. You don't screw up too badly yourself, I whispered, barely able to speak for anticipation of what was coming. His dark eyes twinkled as he gazed at me over the table. Thank you. I thought I should make a special effort. It's a special occasion after all. Eek! Oh, I haven't given you your birthday present yet. A shiver of anticipation ran through me. No, you haven't. If I know you, you'll have spent all day trying to guess what it is. Me? Never entered my head. Jason laughed. Yeah, right. I think you'll like it. I was going to wait until the end of the meal, but I'm too excited about it to wait. Is it okay if we do it now? I nodded. There are a few things I want to say first," he continued. "Your water, sir." A waiter inconveniently appeared. Bottled water, not tap, crikey. I willed the waiter to be quick. "Would you like me to pour, sir?" he asked. I silently pleaded with Jason to say no before I wet myself with excitement. "It's fine. You can just leave it, thanks." "Happy birthday," Jason said when the waiter finally left. "Thank you." We clinked champagne glasses. "Now, where was I?" "You wanted to say some things." "Oh, yes. Do you remember the night we met?" He reached for my hand again. "Of course. Best night of my life." "We said it was fate that we met, remember?" "It was meant to be," I agreed. Neither of us was supposed to be in Nottingham the night we met. I'd been drafted in last minute to make up numbers on a friend of a friend's hen do, and Jason had spontaneously decided to visit an old friend there after his weekend plans fell through. After a day of never to be repeated because it was so terrifying, fun and frolics in the great outdoors, the hen party donned fairy wings and net skirts and embarked on a pub crawl. We ended up in an 80s club where I spotted Jason on the dance floor, looking very cute and very out of place in a thick jumper. "Aren't you hot?" I shouted over the music. "I'm used to the heat," he replied. "I'm a firefighter." "Oh, behave. I had an obsession with firemen, so that one line told me all I needed to know. Then, when I found out he lived in London, well, I was moving there from Manchester 2 weeks later. It had to be fate." "Can you remember what I said attracted me to you that night in Nottingham?" Jason asked. "My fluffy wings?" He laughed. "The outfit certainly helped, but there was something that made me get your phone number at the end of the night." I shrugged. "It was that you'd spent the day on a gorge walking adventure. Any woman who'd spend the day abseiling, climbing and walking through waterfalls was worth getting to know better." "Oh, that was unexpected. I thought I'd told him it was a one-off for the hen do, and I'd never have agreed to make up the numbers if I'd realised what was planned. Maybe I hadn't. Probably wasn't the moment to confess it now. I've never had a girlfriend who enjoys being outdoors and keeping fit as much as I do," he continued. "I can't believe I found someone who loves to go to the gym." Didn't he realise I tolerated rather than loved going to the gym? Obviously not. "Who enjoys mountain biking." Eek! I better not confess that my mountain bike hadn't actually been stolen, but was hiding in Claire's garage, because I'd have a coronary if I ever had to put myself through the extreme torture again that Jason described as a gentle, leisurely ride. "And hiking. It's such a dream come true. I love that you have the same passions as me." He looked at me all dewy-eyed across the table, and I tried to hold his gaze with confidence while my pulse raced. Oh no. I'd anticipated a proposal speech to be all about how happy I made him and how much he loved my company. Actually, that's effectively what he'd said. But I so hadn't seen it coming from that angle. I knew honesty was the foundation of a good relationship, but these were only little white lies, weren't they? I mean, I did regularly accompany him to the gym, but mainly because he worked shifts, so I'd hardly see him if I didn't. And I did go hiking, but that's because I love being in the countryside, not because I like to trample 20 miles across it. Perhaps the time for confession wasn't when he was about to propose. It wasn't like that was all we had in common. We did loads of other things together. The gym and all that stuff was such a small part of what we did, wasn't it? Thankfully, Jason's scary fitness speech had ended. "You know you mean the world to me. So, I wanted to make you really happy on your birthday. I racked my brains trying to think of the perfect gift. I wanted to give you something you really long for. So, here it is. The one thing I know you really, really want." He reached into the pocket of his suit jacket. My heart leapt as he produced a small green velvet ring box. "Happy birthday, Sarah," he said, placing it in front of me. "It's this. Open it and you'll see." With shaking hands, I eased open the lid. My stomach lurched as it opened wider and wider to reveal... What the... There wasn't an engagement ring inside. There wasn't even a pair of earrings. There was a small key. I looked at Jason, then at the key, then back at Jason again. A thought struck me. He hadn't got down on one bended knee yet, so maybe this was the start of an elaborate game to find the ring. It would be locked in a tin, in a suitcase, in a safe, or something like that, and I'd have to follow a trail of rose petals and fairy dust. How incredibly romantic. He handed me an envelope. The first clue, maybe. I tore the seal open and scanned the contents. Maybe not. My fist tightened, crumpling the edge of the paper. Dear Mr. Wilkes and Miss Peterson, we're delighted to confirm your 6-month premium membership at the Fitness Factor. This is a fantastic investment in your health and well-being. Your exclusive membership guarantees a place in our most popular classes, no waiting lists for you, as well as a weekly premium members-only pool session and climbing wall session. And you'll have exclusive use of your very own lockers for the duration. We're pleased to enclose your keys. Finally, we'll be launching an exciting programme of outdoors adventures next year on which premium members will have priority booking. Thank you for choosing the Fitness Factor. We look forward to welcoming you both as premium members very soon. Your Fitness Factor team. He hadn't, had he? Surely he hadn't bought me a gym membership for my birthday. A joint membership. A gift for him, too. I felt nauseous as that random speech about keeping fit in the great outdoors suddenly had a context. What do you think? Jason shuffled in his seat with obvious excitement. Is it the perfect gift or what? It's great, I said, my voice sounding an octave higher than usual. Thanks, Jace. You're welcome. I knew you'd love it. How many times have you said you wished you had your own locker, so you didn't have to remember to take your shampoo and stuff when you go for a swim or sauna? Cue flashback of us leaving the gym a couple of weeks ago. I mustn't have zipped my bag up properly, because my shower gel clattered onto the tiled entrance floor, spurting citrus gunk everywhere. Do you know what I wish for right now? I said. I know 6 months is a big commitment, he continued. But as we've been living together for 2 years, I didn't think it would be too big a step. I felt my shoulders sag and the energy seep from my whole being. So that's what he meant about plans for the future. A 6-month gym contract, not a lifetime together. Tears pricked my eyes, and I rapidly blinked them away. That's not the only present I've got for you, Jason said. Maybe? He reached under his seat for something, then pushed a sports shop carrier bag across the table with Love Jason scrawled across the front in marker pen. Maybe not. I peered into the bag and reluctantly pulled at the shiny leopard print material. Oh my God. A leotard? You look fantastic in that. I really think he believed it. I tentatively dangled the offending article over one finger and clocked the size 8 to 10 label. I wanted to scream at him. When have I ever been a size 8 to 10? When have I ever liked leopard print? When have I ever indicated that I'd like to wear a leotard instead of a baggy t-shirt and leggings? After more than 2 years together, don't you know me at all? Yet all I said was, thanks, Jason. It's lovely. Trying to sound as though I actually meant it. I suspected the accompanying smile looked more like a grimace, but Jason clearly didn't notice. He looked so pleased with himself. I knew you'd like it. I was only going to get you the gym membership, but when I was in the shop the other day, I spotted that in the sale and thought it was so you. How? How could he possibly think a leopard print leotard was so me? I couldn't bring myself to look at him as I hastily shoved the devil's gym kit back into the bag. Firefighter Wilkes. A booming voice startled me. You come to my restaurant? Mr. Crescetti. Jason stood up and embraced a large man wearing chef's whites. Luigi, please, he insisted. And who is the belladonna? Your wife? God, no, Jason said. We're not married. She's just my girlfriend, Sarah. I stared at Jason, mouth open. God, no. Did he really just say that? And just my girlfriend? He did. He said, God, no. That would mean the idea of getting married to me was... I couldn't finish the thought. Buonasera, Sarah. Luigi reached for my hand and kissed it. Your man here. He save house. He save rabbit. He is hero. He did what? My head felt fuzzy. I needed some air, but I had a wall on one side and a loud Italian on the other. He save a house. He save rabbit. Luigi repeated. I was on a shout today, Jason explained. Small fire in Luigi's garage. Their pet rabbit was overcome by smoke, but I did mouth to mouth and he saved rabbit. Bambini's so happy. I say to him, come to my restaurant anytime, on the house. You choose anything. He suggests tonight. I say, of course. Thanks, Luigi, Jason said. Enjoy. Luigi leaned over and patted my arm, then pointed at Jason. Hero, he said, bowing. Then he headed towards the kitchen. I felt the colour drain from my cheeks as I stared at Jason. It's free, I whispered. The meal. Champagne. Tonight. I know. How great is that? Don't get mad at me, but I hadn't got round to booking anywhere, so the timing was perfect. Like I could afford to bring you here again if it wasn't on the house. He grinned at me, clearly thrilled with himself and oblivious to the impact of his actions. I lowered my eyes to my hands, which were hanging limply in my lap, and focused on the bare engagement finger. It was never going to be a proposal. It was a last-minute freebie, and I was such a stupid fool. Sighing, I covered my left hand with my right one. Are you okay? Jason asked. You don't look very well. I thought you were bringing me here to what? I looked up from my hands. He genuinely looked flummoxed. He'd forgotten what had happened here last time and what he'd said. Sarah, to what? Nothing, I muttered. It doesn't matter. Would you excuse me? I stood up slowly, holding onto the table, fearing my legs wouldn't hold me. I must go to the ladies before the food arrives. Humiliation and disappointment burned at the back of my throat as I stumbled through the crowded restaurant. I fought hard to keep it together until I made it to the ladies, but I'd barely closed the cubicle door before the first heaving sob shook my body. Slumped on the toilet. I didn't care who heard. Anguished cries echoed off the marble walls and cocooned me in my pain. Eventually, the tears stopped flowing and the shaking subsided, but the pain in my heart remained. I blew my nose and wiped wearily at my wet cheeks. How stupid had I been to think he'd brought me here to propose? How could I have got it so wrong? I rose slowly, dropped the pile of soggy tissues into the toilet pan, flushed it, and watched the tissues disappear along with my hopes and dreams. The words he'd said to Luigi echoed in my mind. Not his wife, just his girlfriend. Where the hell could we go from here? Not up the aisle, that was for sure. But a nagging voice in my head said, Don't get angry at him, Sarah. This is your fault. You've had over 2 years to tell him you don't love the gym or hiking or mountain biking like he does. What do you expect? The poor guy genuinely thought he'd bought you something you'd love because you led him to believe that you loved working out as much as him. This is your doing, not his. I didn't want to listen to that voice. 1 year later. Chapter 2. I stood on the pavement, staring down at the lower ground floor Victorian flat that Jason and I had rented for the last 3 years and 23 days. The keys dug into my palm while I watched the changing light of the TV screen flickering through the voile-covered window. A cold wind tugged at my coat and tickled my nose. I shivered and sniffed. Then I sniffed again, breathing in the unmistakable aroma of a fresh, garlicky homemade lasagna. Jason made a mean lasagna when we first met. He cooked a lot in the early days, but now the freezer was packed with ready meals. A feeling of nostalgia overcame me for those early, happy days. Maybe the smell was coming from our flat. Maybe he'd have remembered it was my 30th and cooked as a birthday treat. Yeah, right. And he'd have done the washing up and vacuumed the flat. Was that a pig flying past? Jason was between shifts, so would have spent a couple of hours at the gym, followed by a bike ride, and will now be lying on the sofa, game controller practically welded to his hands. How had a whole year passed since the disastrous non-proposal? I'd returned to the table that night to find Jason tucking into his starter. If he noticed my red eyes and tear-stained cheeks, he never said a word. My sudden loss of appetite was embraced as more free food for him, and my silence on the train home was put down to fatigue following a tough week at work. Had he really been that clueless? I sat down heavily on the top step, trying to muster the strength to go inside, and rummaged in my bag for my phone. Instead of making me smile, my Facebook newsfeed full of birthday wishes acted as a depressing reminder of all that was wrong in my life. Happy 30th birthday. Hope Jason's taking you somewhere nice. Happy 30th, Sarah. Can he top Luigi's this year? Hope you've had a fabulous day and that Jason has a weekend of pampering planned. Chances of that, 0. Especially as he hadn't even acknowledged it was my birthday when I'd left for work that morning. Mind you, barely acknowledging each other had become our existence, and I was exhausted from it. Could I face another year like this? I didn't want to die all alone like my Uncle Alan, but was this really better than being alone? A text arrived, from Elise. Jess and Lee are back from Rome, and they're engaged. I'm at Minty's with them and Gary. Her diamond's bigger than mine. Outrageous. Look forward to speaking to you tomorrow to find out all about your big birthday night out. Kiss, kiss, kiss. My shoulders drooped even further. Elise's little sister was engaged, but she was 6 years younger than me. She couldn't be getting married. Not before me. But she clearly met the right person, whereas I looked up at the window and shook my head. It was time. Standing up, I brushed some dirt off my skirt and made my way down the stone steps. I unlocked the door, stepped inside the hall, took a deep breath and announced as brightly as I could, Jason, I'm home. No answer, just the sound of machine gun fire. My hand moved towards the knob on the lounge door, but I drew it back and headed for the kitchen instead. Perhaps a little Dutch courage first. Given that the flat smelled more of sweaty socks than lasagna, I was right in my prediction that he wouldn't have prepared a meal. An overwhelming feeling of weariness took hold of my whole body as I slumped against the kitchen doorframe and surveyed the carnage. How did he do it? Useless, lazy, slobby. The damp washing festered in the machine. The A4 note I'd stuck to the front of the machine stating in large marker pen capitals, "Please hang us up," lay on the worktop covered in crumbs and a coffee cup stain. Mugs languished in dull beige liquid in the washing up bowl. Banana peels, empty crisp packets, and part-drunk glasses of squash obliterated the worktops. I grabbed a half-empty bottle of wine from the fridge and took a large swig, a little shocked with myself for drinking from a full-size bottle of wine. What next? Vodka out of a paper bag. I reached into the cupboard for a glass, poured the rest and took a long glug. Happy 30th birthday, Sarah. Shaping up to be just as crap as your 29th. Stomach rumbling, I opened the fridge again and began rummaging. What could I eat? I settled on a jar of crunchy peanut butter, even though I don't actually like the stuff. Spoon in hand, I heaved myself onto one of the uncomfortable stools at the narrow breakfast bar. Whoever designed the stupid things, undoubtedly a man, definitely didn't have size 6 to 18 bottoms in mind. I gazed around the kitchen. A pile of cards and a couple of small packages lay next to the bread bin. Feeling like there was nothing happy about my birthday, I left them where they were. 20 minutes later, Jason walked into the kitchen, yawning and scratching his bits. "You home?" "Looks like it." I watched his eyes flick from me to the empty bottle of wine to the peanut butter. He didn't pass comment anymore, but I knew what he was thinking whenever he caught me mid-binge. No wonder you're fat. You were slim when we met. You went to the gym. You cared about your appearance. Now look at the state of you. "You've still got your coat on," he said. Have I? I hadn't realised. The only things I was aware of were how hungry I still was, how I had peanut butter welded to the roof of my mouth, how the wine had gone straight to my head, and how I'd lost all feeling in my left buttock. My right one probably wasn't far behind. "What time is it?" he asked. "Nearly 10. I watched him reach for the fridge door and wondered why I used to think he was out of my league. He was certainly tall and dark, but was he handsome? Not really. It was true what they said about personality. That fit body, which I once hadn't been able to keep my hands off, did nothing for me anymore. I was also blatantly aware that, after a year of comfort eating, my body did nothing for him either. Except perhaps repulse him. Working late for the past year to avoid facing up to the reality that Jason wasn't the one after all meant I got home too late to cook. So I lived on a diet of chocolate, crisps, donuts and takeaways. This took its toll on my bank balance, my figure, my confidence, and our relationship. We argued constantly at first. Then we started ignoring each other. So I ate more to comfort myself and, well, it was a pretty vicious circle. He closed the fridge door. "What's for dinner?" He flicked the top off a bottle of lager. It dropped to the floor where it lay on the tiles next to a tomato stalk and what looked like a blob of salad cream. He wouldn't pick it up. He didn't care. And at that very moment, I realised that neither did I. I slid off the stool, reached for my post and said, "I can't do this anymore, Jason." "Do what?" "Live like this." "I haven't had time to clear up." "I don't mean the mess." I looked up from my post and fixed my eyes on his. "I mean our relationship. I want us to break up." The minute the words left my mouth, I felt liberated. I felt as light as a feather. I felt... Oh crap, he was about to protest. "Are you serious?" "Yes." "Stay strong. Don't say it was just a suggestion. Don't agree to try again. You can do this. You may as well end it and be alone. Because what you have right now is not a relationship. You're like flatmates who don't even like each other. We're not right for each other. This year hasn't exactly been relationship heaven, has it?" Jason stared at me, completely poker-faced. I willed him to say something. Agree, protest, shout, cheer, just do something. He gulped the rest of his drink down and banged the empty bottle on the worktop. Then he flashed me a dazzling smile and said, "Well, thank God one of us finally had the guts to say it. Sarah, you're a lifesaver. Do you fancy getting last orders in down at the Griffin? Don't look so shocked. Come on, I'll buy you a birthday drink." So that was that. Just over 3 years together had ended. No tears, no recriminations, just 2 drinks, a packet of scampi fries, and an amicable conversation about what idiots we'd been to let it drag on so long. We agreed to give notice on the flat and sell the car, and I'd get custody of the cats. I couldn't have felt more relieved that the ordeal was finally over. Although it had been so easy that I couldn't stop kicking myself for not having the guts to end it sooner. Jason kissed me goodnight, a gentle peck on the cheek, then hailed a cab to a friend's house to avoid a night on the sofa, and to give me some space to think. Which is exactly what I did. In fact, I lay awake most of the night thinking, and worrying, about the important stuff like where I'd live, how quickly we'd sell the car, and how we'd detangle our finances, as well as the little things that suddenly seemed important at 3 a.m, like who'd keep the tea light holders we bought in Greenwich Market last summer, and whether I'd have to pay Jason for his share of the cat scratching post. Rain tapped gently on the window, then with more ferocity. The rhythmic drumming eventually sent me into a troubled sleep, where I reverted to my 13-year-old self, shivering outside Uncle Alan's flat. "Uncle Alan, it's only me," I shouted through his letterbox. Drops of icy rain from the overflowing guttering splashed onto my head and trickled down my neck. I sniffed as a large drop ran down my nose, then instantly recoiled from the letterbox, clutching my nose, as a stench akin to rotting meat hit me. Ugh! He must have left the chicken out of the fridge again. I held my breath as I lifted the flap again. "I'm going to let myself in." Tucking the carrier bag containing the Sunday papers under my arm, I fished in my jeans pocket for the spare key and unlocked the door, bracing myself against the overpowering stench. My stomach lurched, and I pressed my hand over my nose and mouth, thankful that I'd skipped breakfast. "Uncle Alan?" I called through my fingers. "Don't say you can't smell it this time." A few flies buzzed round my ears, and I swatted at them with my hand. Placing my bag down in the hall, I slowly removed my waterproof and hung it on the peg next to the beige Mac that he never left home without. My hands shook slightly as I eased off my wellies and called again. "Uncle Alan, are you being a grump again today? I won't help you with the crossword if you are." Heart thumping, I waited for his response. Nothing. I swatted a few more flies before creeping down the hall towards the lounge at the back of the flat. "Uncle Alan!" I paused just before the lounge doorway and listened again. Over the rain, the thunder and the flies, I could hear the thump, thump, thump of my heart. With my hand still over my nose and mouth, it took all my strength and courage to step from the hall into the lounge, because the sinking feeling in my stomach told me that our regular Sunday routine was about to be broken forever. The curtains were partially closed, so the lounge was in darkness. I tentatively felt along the blown vinyl for the light switch. As my fingers reached the plastic casing, a flash of lightning lit the room like a floodlight. And that's when I saw him, lying there. Over the thunder I heard a scream, a girl's scream, a terrified, pained sound. I sat upright now, heart thumping, as a flash of lightning lit my bedroom. "Uncle Alan," I whispered. When the thunder crashed, I shivered and dived under the covers, clutching my teddy bear, Mr. Pink, reminding myself that I was 30 years old, not 13. I needed to think positive thoughts. I needed to picture him alive instead. I needed to focus on the routine we used to have. At 10 a.m. every Sunday, I'd announce my arrival through the letterbox, let myself in, and headed for the lounge, where I find him reclining in his favourite chair, dunking a plain digestive in milky tea. With a life controlled by diabetes, that plain digestive was his one weekly treat. A strawberry milkshake and a couple of chocolate digestives would be waiting for me. I admired his restraint at never succumbing to the chocolate ones himself. We'd have our drinks while I told him about my week at school and what I'd been doing in my after-school clubs. Then I'd help him with the crossword. I say help, but I certainly wasn't the brains of the partnership. My reading saved him the faff of putting on his glasses, and my writing spared the arthritic aches in his hands. His body may have let him down, but his mind was sharp, with a million facts and details. Another flash of lightning lit the room, and, with it, a vision of Uncle Alan flashed into my mind. The lightning revealing the swollen face, the marbled, yellowy grey skin, the soiled trousers, and I shuddered. I wished I hadn't been the one who found him that day. But if I hadn't, it would have been Mum, Dad, or my brother Ben, and I wouldn't have wished the gruesome discovery on any of them either. If only I could erase that image from my mind, and picture him instead as the grump with a heart that I knew him to be, with a big frown but twinkly grey eyes that teared up each time I hugged him goodbye. I blinked back my own tears that came so easily every time I thought of him. I should have visited more often. Once a week wasn't enough. He needed me. He had nobody but our small family. I wiped at a rogue tear and admonished myself. I was young. I did my best, and he appreciated it. Cowering under the duvet, my mind flitted between the day I'd found Uncle Alan and my current predicament with Jason. When the storm finally subsided at dawn, I'd only reached one conclusion. I didn't want to be alone all weekend. The only close friend I had in London was Claire, and she was away at a work event in Birmingham, which meant that home, the seaside town of Whitsborough Bay in North Yorkshire, was the place to run. Unfortunately, I picked up a voicemail from Mum to say that Dad had whisked her to Paris for the weekend, and she hoped Jason had planned an equally romantic weekend for my birthday. Oh, the irony. I couldn't, therefore, stay with my parents. I could turn to Mum's sister, my Auntie Kay, though. There was no need to ring ahead because I knew exactly where she'd be. She was practically married to a business and never ever took time off. After throwing some clothes into a small case, I travelled the underground, then caught the first train out of King's Cross. Chapter 3. I took one final deep gulp of fresh seaside air, then pushed open the door to Seaside Blooms, a florist's that Auntie Kay had opened 25 years earlier. The little bell tinkled joyously. I've always loved that sound. So welcoming, and so intrinsically associated with home. "Sarah, what are you doing here?" Auntie Kay gently put down the bridal bouquet she was arranging. She wiped her hands on her apron as she rushed out from behind the counter. "Surprise!" She launched herself at me. "I was going to ring you tonight, so it's perfect you're here." As I hugged her tightly, the floodgates, which had surprisingly stayed closed the night before, burst open. "Sweetheart, what is it? What's happened?" "Jason," I whispered. "Is he okay?" "It's over." "Oh, sweetie, I'm so sorry." The shop bell tinkled. Keeping my back to the door in case it was anyone I knew, I released Auntie Kay and rummaged in my bag for a tissue. "Morning, Mrs. Bates," she said. "Kathy will be with you in a moment. Kathy!" Kathy appeared through the arch from the back of the shop, smoothing down her apron over her ample curves. She beamed when she saw me. "Sarah! Kay didn't say Sarah's paid us a surprise visit," Auntie Kay interrupted. "But we just need a chat in the outback. Can you see to Mrs. Bates?" "Of course." Kathy, who'd obviously spotted the tears, gave me a sympathetic look and lightly patted my arm as she bustled past. Auntie Kay bundled me into the outback, the name Ben and I had given to the office/storage/kitchen area behind the shop, after Auntie Kay's fondness for saying, "I'm just going out back to make a cuppa," and sat me down on her battered leather desk chair. She perched on the desk and waited while I composed myself. "Sorry about that," I said. "I thought I was fine, but maybe saying it aloud made me realise it was real. And that I'm alone. Again, like Uncle Alan. Who ended it? Me. Can I ask why?" "You can, but maybe later. Is it okay to stay at Seashell Cottage tonight?" I had a key for Mum and Dad's, but would far rather stay at Auntie Kay's cottage in the old town than be alone. "Of course it is. There's always a bed for you there." Feeling much calmer, I gave my eyes another wipe and pushed some stray curls behind my ears. "You've got a wedding today?" "It can wait. You know I've always got time for my favourite niece. I'm your only niece. I'm sure you'd still be my favourite, even if there were a dozen." I smiled. "I wouldn't have disturbed you, but apparently Mum and Dad are in Paris for the weekend." "Ah, yes, the romantic break. Your dad surprised her with the tickets yesterday. Apparently it's 35 years since he proposed." I sighed. All right for some. Jason never whisked me away on romantic weekends. "Then it's probably just as well you've ditched him. It's time to find someone who will." I shook my head. Maybe not just yet. I think I need to find me again first. Even though that meant being alone for a while. Panic started to well, and I repeated the mantra I developed when I was 22 and distraught by the breakup of my first serious relationship. Alone as in single, but not lonely. I have friends. Alone as in single. I stood up and took a deep breath. "How about you get back to your bouquet? I'll make us all a drink, and then I'll give you a hand with the flowers." "Are you sure you don't mind?" "I'm sure. I'll enjoy it. Your help would be a godsend," she said. "There should have been 4 of us in, but Wendy's at a wedding and Gemma was a no-show. She says gastric flu, but I say hangover. She's on a final warning and we're way behind. Bridesmaids' bouquets or buttonholes?" "Buttonholes, please. I've not slept, so I don't think I'm awake enough to do justice to the bouquets." The truth was, I was worried about messing up. The situation at home had started to affect me and my job as a marketing assistant for a high street bank. I'd made a couple of careless mistakes recently, and had been given a lecture on not bringing my personal problems into work. My confidence was at an all-time low. As if sensing my crisis of confidence, Auntie Kay said, "Tired or not, I know you can do this. You are and always have been the most naturally talented florist I've ever had the pleasure to train, and you've got the qualifications to prove it. You could make those bouquets in your sleep with your hands tied behind your back. But I'll let you off, seeing as you've had a traumatic birthday. You can start on the buttonholes, but if it gets busy, I'll need to promote you to bouquets. And I need all the details about Jason while you work. I can't wait till later. A couple of hours later, Auntie Kay studied the 3 bridesmaids' bouquets, 2 children's posies, and 8 buttonholes I created. Tell me again why you don't work here. These are stunning. Those classes in that London have certainly been worth the money. It made me laugh when she referred to my home as that London, in the same tone of disgust she might use to describe that sexually transmitted infection. She'd only visited me there once, and I was left in no doubt that she thought it was one time too many. I never quite sussed whether it was specifically that London that she hated, or the fact that I lived there instead of at home. I haven't done bouquets in a while, I said. I'm quite pleased. You should be. You say you've been to your flower club more often over the last year? I nodded. Great Jason-avoiding activity. Well, it has paid dividends. Hey, Kathy, come and look. Kathy ambled over. Oh, Sarah, they're gorgeous. You know what you should do? No? What? You should move back home and work for your auntie. Did you 2 rehearse that? I said, planting my hands on my hips in mock indignation. But I couldn't help smiling. It was so lovely to feel wanted, especially after the past year with Jason, when I'd felt anything but. I have no idea what you mean. Auntie Kay looked at me all wide-eyed and innocent. But it's a good idea. Are you sure you don't want to? Yes, Auntie Kay, I'm sure, because I know. She winked at Kathy. Because floristry is just a hobby, even though you're twice as talented as most professional florists I know. Because you don't live here anymore. Because you love that London. Because your job's there. Because Jason doesn't want to move. She paused, then added dramatically, although Jason's out of the picture now, so... Auntie Kay, this isn't my home anymore. I moved away 12 years ago. And you could move back just as easily. I'd even brave another trip to help you pack your stuff. Kathy could hold the fort here, couldn't you, Kathy? Piece of cake, Kathy said. Just name the date. Stop it, you 2. I put my hands over my ears and started humming until Auntie Kay made a zipping action across her mouth, lightly slapped her wrist and mouthed, sorry. I should think so too. I took my hands off my ears. You'll change your mind about moving back here soon. I doubt it. Thanks for the effort, though. I'd probably be offended if you didn't keep trying to convince me to stay. I'd think you didn't want me anymore. Come here, you. She hugged me again. I'll always want my favourite niece around. Hello? Is this a bad time? I hadn't heard the bell above the door tinkle, so the male voice startled me. I looked round to see a man in a navy morning suit. He looked to be in his early 30s and was about 6 feet tall with thick dark hair, which he wore slightly spiky at the top. Very nice. Nick! Auntie Kay gave him a kiss on each cheek. Goodness me, you scrub up well. Let's have a look at you. Thank you. Nick did a slightly awkward twirl. I think you're being generous, though. Don't most people look good in one of these things? In my opinion, yes, they do. But Nick looked extra fine in his. My stomach did an unexpected flip as he looked towards me and smiled. For a fleeting moment, I was oblivious to anything except him and those blue eyes that twinkled like the ocean on a sunny day. You don't think I look like a blue penguin? He asked, still holding my gaze. No, just a gorgeous hunk of loveliness. Whoa, get a grip, Sarah. The guy's about to get married. Look away, now. Thankfully, Auntie Kay spoke, and Nick broke our gaze. Don't put yourself down. Some men look ridiculous in one, and I've seen hundreds of them in this business. It really suits you. You're looking very handsome. She turned to me. Oh no, don't you dare. She dared. Isn't he, Sarah? Isn't he looking handsome? My cheeks burned. Yes, stranger who I've never met, you look very handsome, as my auntie puts it. Nick laughed, put out his hand and shook mine enthusiastically. Auntie? Then you must be Kay's niece, Sarah. I've heard lots about you. I'm Nick Derbyshire. Hi, Nick. I reluctantly let go of his hand. Are you nervous, Nick? Auntie Kay asked. Terrified, especially about the speech. I wish I didn't have to speak first. But the groom doesn't usually speak first, I blurted out. The father of the bride does. Nick smiled proudly. I am the father of the bride. But you can't be much older than me. I'm 32. Then you must have had your daughter very young. Auntie Kay laughed. He hasn't got kids. It's his sister's wedding. I frowned. But our dad died when I was 10 and Callie was 6, Nick said. I've been the father figure as well as a big brother, so she asked me to give her away. Oh, that's so lovely. I'm sorry about your dad, though. Thank you. He'd have been very proud of Callie today. He turned to Auntie Kay. Are the flowers ready? Let me show you. She led Nick to a large table behind the counter. Sarah did most of them, she gushed, turning round and grinning at me. She's so talented. Aren't they gorgeous? My cheeks burned again. Could she be more obvious? Nick turned and smiled at me. Very gorgeous. There was something in the way he looked at me that made me think he wasn't talking about the flowers. It can't mean me, can he? I'm far from gorgeous. I'm fat, my hair's a mess, my eyes are red, and no, he definitely means the flowers. I'm being silly, hallucinating due to lack of sleep. The bell tinkled, and a younger man in a matching suit poked his head round the door. Sorry, Nick, I'm on double yellows, he said. OK, best get going then. Nick handed a box to the man, then grabbed the other. Auntie Kay pulled the door wide open for them both. Send my love to Callie, she said. Tell her I want to see the photos. Oh, good luck with the speech. They say you should picture your audience naked. Helps with the nerves. Not a pleasant thought. You haven't seen my Uncle Clive. He screwed up his face and shuddered. I can't dislodge that vision now. I may be traumatised for life. And on that note, thanks again for these, Kay. He turned back and gave me a big smile. It was lovely to meet you at last, Sarah. You're exactly how I imagined. Hope our paths cross again. I smiled and waved, trying to ignore the butterflies in my stomach. Calm down, Sarah. You're only having a reaction to him because you're now single and it's allowed. You're bound to be attracted to the first good-looking man who does you the courtesy of speaking to you. Especially when he's wearing a morning suit and has eyes the colour of the ocean and... Stop it! Auntie Kay closed the door and made her way back to the counter. Such a lovely young man, she said. He seemed pleasant enough. I tried to sound nonchalant. I'm not sure if I pulled it off. He is. Very pleasant, very lovely. You remember Alma Sutton who lived next door to me when you were little? She was Nick's grandma. Small world. He's such a sensitive young man too. He comes in every year on New Year's Eve to pick up 3 bouquets of white roses and 3 loose stems. On New Year's Day, he puts a bouquet on the graves of his grandma, granddad and dad, and he throws the single ones into the sea off Lighthouse Point to remember each of them. That's very sweet and thoughtful of him. He's single, you know. Isn't he a bit young for you? I don't mean for me. I planted my hands on my hips and gave her a mock stern expression. I know exactly what you mean, and I'm choosing to ignore it. I've already told you I'm not ready for dating, and, even if I was, someone who lives 4 hours away wouldn't be top of my list. Well, you could move back home. I think I'd need a slightly stronger reason to move back home than you trying to play Cupid. I sighed and shook my head. Auntie Kay didn't retort. Instead, she fiddled with my grandma's engagement ring, twirling it round and round on her finger. I narrowed my eyes at her. Are you okay? She stopped twiddling and took a deep breath. I said I was going to ring you tonight. It's time to tell you why. My stomach flipped, but not in the nice way caused by Nick earlier. More of a foreboding way. I'd assumed she was going to call to ask me about my birthday, not because she had news. And possibly bad news. if this rare display of nerves was anything to go by. Thoughts of terminal illnesses swam round my mind. "You're making me nervous," I said. "Give me a minute." She disappeared into the outback and returned a few moments later clutching a bright red ring binder, which she handed to me. "What's this?" "You said it would take a slightly stronger reason for you to move home than a bit of matchmaking. Well, I've got one. You know how I always said you'd inherit Seaside Blooms when I'm gone and Ben would get Seashell Cottage?" "Yes, and I always told you not to be so morbid." "Oh God, she is ill." "No." She twiddled with her ring again. "I've changed my mind. I don't want to leave the business to you in my will. I want to give it to you now." "What?" "I've had an unexpected opportunity to travel around the world with my friend Linda, and I've decided to take it. I want to retire, and I want you to become the new owner of Seaside Blooms. Pretty much immediately." Chapter 4. "So, you finally had the sense to dump that Egypt?" Claire unwrapped her scarf, slipped off her coat and handed me both. "Could you not have left it there? Why pack in your job as well?" Without waiting for an answer, she marched into my bedroom. I hung her coat up and followed her. She was stretched out on the bed, high-heeled brown suede boots dumped in the doorway. I tutted and moved them to the side. "Don't you ever wear jeans like a normal person?" I asked, taking in her expensive-looking soft cream-fitted jumper and short brown cashmere skirt. "That doesn't look very practical for helping me pack." Claire propped herself up on her elbows. "My role is to lie here and direct. Packing's a good chance for a clear-out, so we'll start with your clothes. I'll tell you what you can keep. Don't look at me like that. I'm doing you a favour, so I am." "In what way?" "By the time I'm finished, you'll have a lot less crap to fit in the van tomorrow." "How rude. Although you won't need to worry about any of it if I can convince you to change your mind and stay." "I'm sorry." I pushed her legs to one side so I could perch on the bed. "You know I'll miss you loads, but this is too good an opportunity. I had to take it." She sighed. "I know. I'm probably the one who should be saying sorry." "For what?" "For being such a crap friend." "Because you've been sulking all week." I stuck my tongue out at her.